Hart. Did you have anything to do with Davey Boy coming back in 1990?
He got into trouble with his drug testing with whatever he was on, and got kicked out, and there wasn't much I could do about that. And it only seemed like a few months later, or maybe 6 months later, I don't know, Davey got suspended in maybe, was it October of 92 or November of 92. And then he came back, I don't know, was it 93, 94, somewhere in there. But he was only in WCW. He could only take WCW for 1 year, and then he fled there and came back to WWF. And so it was a bit of a surprise when Davey showed up again. But I was, me and Davey were always pretty good friends, so I was always, and of course he's family, so, I always tried to look out for Davey.
Well, so WrestleMania 8 happens, you win the Intercontinental Championship from Roddy Piper, and then it's going to be you and Shawn at SummerSlam. That's the plan in Washington, D.C., SummerSlam 92, you and Shawn. And then in June, things change. Talk to us about how that changed and it became you and Bulldog at Wembley.
Well, I was lucky. Like when I won the title from Roddy Piper, the way they told me, they said it was only a penciled in kind of thing. Like, we're thinking, all this stuff is thought out months and months in advance kind of thing. So it was the first time I heard, like when I won the title, they said, we're thinking that maybe we'll have you drop the belt eventually meaning anytime, to Shawn, and asked me if I was okay with that. And I said I was totally fine with that, because Shawn was a great wrestler. And I was a big fan of Shawn, and we were close friends at that time. So I wanted to work with Shawn, and that was sort of roughly keyed in. Like, I didn't know. I knew I was going to hold the belt for a little longer. Like, I figured 6 months was my guess. And so I figured probably roughly 6 months from now, I'll probably drop the belt to Shawn, like as planned. But then Jim Duggan and Curt Hennig used to do the play-by-play, the announcing, and they get clued into everything ahead of time than the wrestlers do. And so I remember Duggan and Curt both came up to me, not at the same time, but in the same day, to tell me that they're looking over their shoulders like this, like, guess what? WrestleMania or SummerSlam is going to be in, they're thinking about having it in Wembley Stadium in England. And then I was thinking, me and Shawn at Wembley Stadium would be a good match. It really would have been a great match. But the match to have in England would be Bret Hart versus British Bulldog. And he just came back. And so I took a step, I stepped out on a limb kind of thing to go to Vince, and prematurely, and go, Vince, rumor has it that you're going to England and you're going to have a show in Wembley. And I said, I don't know if that's true or not, but if it's true, and if you were thinking that maybe you'd have maybe work with Shawn and drop the belt to Shawn in England, I said, I think that's a lousy idea, and I think you should have me drop it to the British Bulldog in England and let the British Bulldog drop the belt to Shawn in a shorter run for Davey, but he would work a program with Shawn. Because I didn't want to interrupt Shawn's chance of getting the belt. Wrestlers wait all their lives to get that moment, and for me to substitute Davey in Shawn's place was a kind of not a fair thing to do. So I did go to Shawn and tell him that. I said, Shawn, I just want you to know I went to Vince, and I said, I don't know if they really expect me to have plans for me to wrestle you at Wembley, but if they do, I'm suggesting this instead. And I remember Shawn goes, I'm okay. Like, he was basically, I think Shawn trusted me enough to know that I was trying to look after him and the business at the same time. And so anyway, when I did see Vince, he said he didn't have it worked out yet whether it was going to be Wembley or in Washington, D.C. And I told Vince, I said, Wembley with Davey would be great. And if you want to do Washington, D.C. at the MCI, I think it was called, either that or it was at the Cap Center, but I said, you got to put me with Shawn in a ladder match. And he goes, what's a ladder match? And I said, a ladder match, it's a match we do in Calgary. And I tried to explain it to him And he told me, he goes, show me the match. I want to see it tonight. So they went and got a bunch of guys to go out and get a big ladder and all this stuff. And it was all very spur of the moment. I only had a few minutes to get great. He goes, grab anybody you want and show me a ladder match. Exactly what it is, the concept. And so I said, I'll pick Sean, because Sean would be the guy I would do it with in Washington. Anyway, so this is all meaningless because anyway, within a day or two, it turned out it's going to be Wembley. But the mistake I made was I had the ladder match with Sean at a TV taping, and Sean stole the idea, just stole it from me and used it a year later or 2 years later or whatever. And today they always attribute the ladder match and to Razor and Sean, and it's always a bit of a soft spot for me. I get pissed off when I think of how they stole that idea from me. It should have been me and Owen in a ladder match instead of that cage match. But anyway, so tit for tat, I guess. Wembley, Vince comes up to me and tells me that's me and Davey at Wembley, and it's like great. And I remember I told him, I said, this might be the greatest match of all time. I said, you're not gonna be disappointed. And I remember when I saw him a few weeks before WrestleMania or before SummerSlam, he told me that he was taking a chance, but he was going to put me on last. And I remember I told him, I said, nobody will follow us. You have to put us on last because nobody will have a match after. Like there'll be nothing left after my match. And he said, I hope so. And I remember me and Davey was in Binghamton, New York. We had a TV taping, and they booked Davey and I. This is probably 2 months from the SummerSlam, sometime in June anyway. And again, Davey had just come back from being suspended, and he was just back. And we had a dark match. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what a dark match is, but it's a match filmed mostly just for prosperity or the Coliseum videos or something like that. But we had this dark match. And me and Davey just had the absolute worst match. We went out there and just had about 25 minutes of just messed up high spots and flubs. And Davey, neither one of us was ready for the match. We didn't know we were having the match until that day. And anyway, just the timing and all the stuff that you need to have a really great match, everything was just off that night. And I just remember walking through the curtain after the match in Binghamton, and Vince is standing there. He goes, it's going to get better, right? And I'm like, yeah, it'll get better, and that was it. And then Davey came up with a staph infection, which I think I've always thought was baloney, that he didn't have a staph infection. He had a drug addiction, and he just went home for the whole summer. He took the whole summer off. I don't know whether that's true or not. He may have had a staph infection, but let me put it this way. Davey had numerous staph infections over the 20 years that we wrestled together, and it seemed convenient that whenever he needed a little time off to get a break, he came up with this staph infection, and it always worked, I guess. So, but I never believed that he actually had a staph infection. But I was disappointed because I called Davey. I know it's hard to understand sometimes, but I thought so hard about this match at Wembley. Like when you watch the match at Wembley, I mean, I don't know how other wrestlers construct a match in their head, but I constructed the match from the tie-up to the next move, to the next move, to the next move, and vice versa, like what Davey would do to me. And I pieced it together. First, I had first 5 minutes of the match, and then within a couple of weeks, I had the first 15 minutes, and then it was 20 minutes, and then it was 25, and I pieced the whole match, move for move, every single step of it, the match. And I kept calling Davey all summer and going, Davey, I got to talk to you about this match. Like I've got this sort of idea in my head of how the match should go, and it's going to be the best match ever. And I need you to call me back. And Davey never called me back. I don't know why he would just refuse to call me. I think he had the monkey on his back. And he was probably doing a lot of blow with Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And which is a shame because they both were their worst enemies at the time, like to drag themselves through that. And Davey really let himself go all summer, and Jim Neidhart, they both had drug problems, and Davey just never called me for 2 months. He ducked me every single day. I call my sister every day and go, please tell Davey to call me. He's got to call me about the match, and he would never call me. And I started getting kind of annoyed as the day it got within like 2 or 3 days of SummerSlam. And I still haven't heard from Davey. I called him even before I got on the plane. I still never heard from him. I got on the plane, flew to England. There's Davey standing in the dressing room at Wembley Stadium where we were there the day before where they filmed those interviews, the one I talk about Windsor Castle or something like that. There's some castle but I just remember it's like this was all pre-taped the day before. And so when I got with Davey in the dressing room in Wembley, I was really mad at him. Like, what the hell? I said, why haven't you called me? Like, this is the biggest moment of your whole life. And I was the one that put you in the match. Like, you weren't, this is supposed to be me and Sean, but I went to bat for you and got you, and this is the biggest moment of your career, and you don't call me? And I remember Davey almost broke down in tears and said, I'm and he told me that he was in really in a bad state, and told me he had been doing lines with Jim Neidhart right up until he got on the plane, and that he was basically a mess. And he goes, I haven't wrestled for 2 months. My timing's off. I haven't worked out. And he was really scared and almost kind of panicked and was like, and I was like, I actually kind of calmed him down. I said, Davey, we'll be fine. You just got to listen to me all the way through the match. Trust me, and I will carry you through this whole match, and we'll be fine. Just get a good night's sleep, and we'll make this work tomorrow. Just think positive right now. All that stuff, everything you've done, and the fact that you didn't call me is irrelevant. Let's focus on the task at hand, kind of thing. And so Davey was good that way. He was like, I think he was really scared and knew that he'd flubbed a big moment in his career, and I think he knew that if there was anybody that could save him, it would be me. And that was the hardest part about that match, is I did most of the work for both of us.